All right, Jeffrey Way from Envato is going to tell you everything you need to know about custom post types.
Not everything.
We're going to keep some for us.
I am a developer evangelist for the Envato marketplaces. So these are places where you can, among lots of other things, you can buy premium themes, WordPress themes, and premium WordPress plugins. And we are far and away the biggest in the world. So if you want to make money as an author, or let's say you're starting a new project and you just want a head start on it because the client only has, say, $1,000 and that doesn't warrant building a site from scratch, you can pick up a template and then you can optimize it for them. So it's a really good way to get a lot of bang for your buck. So I'm not a big fan of slides, as I think you're going to find in just a moment how long that's going to take. So we're going to go through about 5 slides, and then we're just going to exit out and we're going to go into a code editor and we're going to discuss specifically what custom post types are, and we're going to build a small little snippets app so you can see how you would do it in your own projects. Any second now. The speeds here are just insane, let me tell you.
Style up.
This image is like 50K, come on guys. There we go. Now we're to the title. That's what I'm talking about. NetTouch Live. So this is something I'm experimenting with, taking the experience on NetTouch and actually making it a live interactive thing where we do it on stage and then people can ask questions and work along. So hopefully that'll be cool. What to expect, we're going to learn exactly what custom post types are. We're going to talk about taxonomies. We'll discuss meta boxes, all of these scary words that really aren't scary at all. Who am I? I am NetTouch editor, evangelist for the Envato marketplaces. I am the co-writer of Wicked WordPress themes. Anyone familiar with that book? Oh, good. Thank you. I have 1 copy to give away to someone. Find me after. First person can have it. I've also written a book for The Enemy, Tumblr, Theme Tumblr Like a Pro. So none of you will pick that one up. And yeah, I hate viewing slides, so let's get out of this and get started. All right, so I'm going to open up my code editor. And what I've done here is this is a fresh installation of WordPress. So 0 configuration has been made. And we're going to get started building kind of like a little snippets app. If you think about custom post types, let me show you. First, let's go over exactly what custom post types are. And you want to think about ways to filter your content. A custom post type is simply a way to display and group content together. That's really all it is. So if we take a look at this random website, Pop Critics, this is built on WordPress, but it's actually fairly powerful. If you want to take a look, let's go to Movies. And Movies is a custom post type that they have set up. And when you think about a movie database, you can think about how you would want to filter that content. Thank you. So let's say you're browsing movies and you want to filter the content. Well, you'd want to filter it according to genre, all right? Maybe I want to filter according to the actor. What about the director? What about, I don't know, what else? Rating, maybe composer. And these are what we would call custom taxonomies. Scary word, but it's just a way to filter and group together content. That's it. So here we have an actor's taxonomy. And when I click on it, I can filter all of the posts within this movies post type down to only those, if you look in the URL at the top, in this case, that has Angelina Jolie in it. If we want to filter by director. These are custom taxonomies. So what we'll do, water exploded in my face. So what we're going to do is the Coda version. We're going to build a little snippets app. So let's get started. Now the first step is I am within the theme folder. A lot of WordPress developers don't seem to know that you need to be in debug mode. You can do that by going to wp config. So this is the home directory for this WordPress installation. And we're going to browse to wp config. And we want to set up debug mode. And this will make sure that any errors or even notices will display when we're working. So we're going to look for wp debug. And always make sure during development, especially if you're a plugin developer, make sure that's set to true. All right, let's close that out. And now we are really all set to get started. The first step is we need to declare our custom post type. And we can do that either as a plugin. Some people prefer plugins, and some people prefer to do it within the functions file. So honestly, it really just comes down to what you prefer. So we're going to do it within functions because we want to keep it as simple as possible. So you can see here, this is the default functions file for the 2011 theme. We're not going to do it in here, so I'm going to require a file called mycustompost.php. And let's create that file. And then we'll have access to any of the functions and classes. All right, so if you want to check to make sure that's working, let's take this and load the page. And we do get hi, so we know that we are importing that file. All right, so the first step is to register a post type. Now you can register a post type really quite easily. We're going to start as simply as we possibly can, and then we'll expand it, because if I show you all the code, it can get a little confusing, so we'll take it one step at a time. So let's register a post type, and it's going to accept two parameters. The first parameter is going to be, what is the name of this post type? And you're going to want to make sure that it's lowercase and there's no spaces or anything like that. So we're going to call ours snippet because we want to display content according to snippets. We want snippets only. And then the second parameter will be an array that contains options, configuration options. So in this case, I'm going to pass an array. And the only thing that is really required in our case is we want to make sure that it is viewable and searchable. And we can do that by setting public equal to true. Now also, well, let's keep it like that for now. And I'm going to go into the back end. And you can see right now, we do have this new custom post type, but it's named posts. That's a little odd. And that's because the default name or label for a post type is going to be post or posts. So let's override that and set a label. And we're going to call our snippet. There we go. Now we've named it snippet. So now, though, if we add a new one, you're going to see this right here, add new post. That's a little bit odd. And that's because there is a huge number of labels that you can apply when you're doing your custom post type. And the truth is, really depending upon your needs, they may or may not be necessary. But if you really want to be specific, you can pass a labels array. And here, we're not going to go through all of them because there's so many lines, but you could do things like, what would the text say for add a new item? So you can set add new item, and then we can set that to add new snippet. And now you can see right there, we've updated that. And you're going to have the same things for like buttons and edit a new item and lots of stuff like that. We're going to keep it as simple as we can. But now the next step is, we're just running this code immediately when the file is loaded. But we're not really considering WordPress at all. And we want to take advantage of actions. So I'll add an action right here. And this is going to be the init action. And this is where a lot of WordPress's code runs. We call it the init action. Let's get a little more real estate here. Okay, and now we're saying when WordPress reaches a certain point, it executes a function called doAction in init, and now we're only running it as a callback at this specific point. And this is something that's specific to PHP 5.3. So if that looks familiar, you might be used to doing something like this, my func, something like that. And that's fine, and if you're building things for distribution, like for something on ThemeForest, you want to remember that not everyone is going to be using PHP 5.3. However, if you do have the luxury of using 5.3, you can use a lot of fun things like closures, and in this case, we're passing an anonymous function. And I think this is a lot cleaner. So if you have the ability to do it, I definitely would. If you're familiar with JavaScript or jQuery, this should look quite familiar to you. So let's go back and reload it. There we go. And now, looks pretty good. There we go. All right, so the next step is, you notice here, the defaults for a post type are going to be titled, and then we have the editor right here. But what if you want to customize that? Well, there's a couple ways you can do that. We can use supports. And now let's just say for the time being, for some crazy reason, you only want to display the title. You would specify supports and pass an array. And now you can see we only have the title. But in our case, that's a little weird. So why don't we have the title, and we're going to get the editor. And we want snippets. People should be able to comment on snippets. So let's pass that in. What if we want an excerpt? We're going to, let's save that, come back. We're going to be putting our snippet within this big editor box. So that means that there probably should be a way to describe the snippet. And you could either create a custom field for that, or you could also just throw that into the excerpt option. Right here, you could write a little bit about it. All right, so I think this is fine. We have a title, we have an editor, we have the excerpt. If you wanted a thumbnail, for some reason, you could pass that in there and then provide support. I don't think that's necessary. The next thing...
Did you say a custom field could be added in there also? Mm-hmm. What you said?
Mm-hmm. We'll go over that shortly. We'll add a custom meta box shortly. Now, the next thing is, how would I want to filter this content? We've created these snippets. Imagine in your head a blog with hundreds of snippets. How would you want to search for them? How would you want to filter them down to find exactly what you need? So I'm thinking language. Definitely, I want to be able to view by language. Maybe by difficulty. That's a little odd, but I think that's fine off the top of my head. So we're going to add a custom taxonomy for language, and then anything you can think of that you would want to filter your content, you would add that. But before we get there, what we have right here is fine, but it's not really flexible. If you wanted to add another post type, you would need to duplicate a lot of code. And to be honest, when I was first getting ready to speak here, I was going to teach you guys about an object-oriented approach to doing this. This page would end load. And it shows you how to instantiate a class, and then it'll do all the work for you. And then I decided it's just too much abstraction, and it's too hard to follow. But if you would like to learn how to do that, you can go to this URL, and it'll show you a more object-oriented approach to doing this. For now, we're going to stick with more procedural and functions. So let's create a function. And this function will be called, say, add post type. And our post type needs to accept the name of post type, of course. So let's keep it like that. And then I'm just going to take all of this code right here and paste it in, like so. So now, from our functions file, we can reference this function. And you have all that built-in abstraction for yourself. Add post type snippet. So now, add post type snippet, name will be equal to snippet. Then we're going to add an action, but we're still hard-coding all of this stuff in. So that's not really good. So we're going to come to a big issue that I noticed quite a bit. Let's echo name. And if I come back, let's pull some of this out. There we go. We do get snippets, so we are echoing out the name. Of course, easy, we can all do that. But, and this is something that confuses a lot of people, now we're going to echo out the name from within the callback of the init action. And then, what? Undefined variable, what does that mean? How could I possibly access my values from within the callback? And this is where you really need to understand how WordPress works. WordPress is executing a function called doInit, and then it may or may not pass specific parameters. In this case, it has no idea what name is, so you cannot access it. Now, there's a couple ways you can do this. Well, let's do two. One of them is going to be global variables. Be careful with these guys. Let's do global post type name. And then we're going to set that equal to name. And I wouldn't really do this, but it's good to know one possible way. And then, from within your add action, you can look for it. Once again, let's just grab that. Echo post type name. And now we are getting it. But the problem with this is, look at that, 4 lines just to access the value of that variable. That's not very fun. And especially if you try to do a class, you're going to have a lot of issues with this. Another way is we're going to, since we're sticking with 5.3 here and we're taking a look at some new things we can do, you can take a look at views. I bet this is foreign to a lot of you. This is, in PHP 5.3, this is how PHP implements closures. So now I can say, let's use name. And if you're familiar with JavaScript and closures, you know that this can be super, super powerful. So this is one way that we can gain access to it. Now if I say echo name, there we go. Now we have access to it. So that's the method we'll use today. There's one or two others though. Now we're going to make this a little more dynamic. So we're going to register name, and then let's get label name. But we do want that to be uppercase, so we can say UC words. This is the PHP function that'll make it uppercase. And then the same thing right here, name. And then if we want to embed a variable, let's make sure we wrap that within double quotes. So now let's refresh, and we still have access to it, but let's test it. Add post type, thingy. And if you get this, just remember you need to go back, WP admin. Yeah, there we go. So now we've made this a little more dynamic. When you're creating new projects, you can just reference whatever your class or your functions, and you don't have to remember all of this code. The next thing is, we had taxonomies. Or actually, you know what, I haven't gone over this. Let's say you want to have additional ways to filter your content. One that would make sense would be tags. And tags is built in. It's a built-in taxonomy. And you can reference that by doing taxonomies. And then you can reference any of your custom ones, or you can reference the built-in ones. So an important thing to note is taxonomies are singular. So if we want to reference a category, we would do it like so. And then when I refresh the page, you'll see we have this new panel here, because that's built in. Same thing if you want to have the ability to tag your snippets. And this is something we actually want. We want to pass post tag, because then if I have, in our case, like an opacity snippet, I can then add tags for anything, whether it's opacity or if I'm doing a CSS3 type thing. We can take advantage of the built-in taxonomy. Okay, that looks good. So now we have register post type. We need to implement a custom taxonomy. And what I ultimately want to do is a function like register taxonomy. And then here I can pass in the name, language, because that's how we're going to filter our snippet. So let's implement this function. And what you're going to find is it's really quite similar to this function we have above. And if we wanted to, we could even we could group those together if we wanted to, but we're going to keep it a little more simple. So now, once again with taxonomy, you can't just say register taxonomy. That's not going to work, because then we're not within the do action function. We're just in regular PHP, and that's not going to work. So if you're ever doing this register post type up here, and you're trying to get taxonomies and it's not displaying, make sure you are at the correct level. And in this case, we're at the init action. So let's do another action. We could group these together, or we can separate them. Init. We'll pass an anonymous function, and then we are going to register a taxonomy. And this will accept 3 parameters. First one is, what is the name of this taxonomy? How are we going to filter the content? We're going to make it lowercase, and we're going to call it language. And the post type, we have to tell WordPress what it relates to. Otherwise, how would it know? Should this display for posts? Should it display for pages or attachments? We want to display for snippet. And then args is a list of options. Once again, that display, that configure it essentially. So let's do, I'm using beta, this new editor. Anyone familiar with Sublime Text? It's so good, so good. It has this, if I can go off track real quick, it has this multiple cursor type feature. So if I can hold down Command, you see I get like multiple cursors. Isn't that pretty awesome? Well, hold on, let me show you one more thing. Let's do hello. Okay, so let's say I have hello, and I want to select every occurrence of this, and I just want to override it, because this is something you do a lot. On the Mac, I can press Control-Command-G, and it'll just automatically select every occurrence of that word, and then it sets a cursor, so I can say, what's that? Pretty awesome. Sublime Text is available for like every OS, so yeah, I love it. All right, so now let's set the label. Language. Come back. Cannot read the register. Moment.
You named your own function, same name as WordPress version. Register taxonomy.
Okay, we're seeing the name function register.
Register taxonomy.
Did I call it? Oh, I did. It should be called add taxonomy. Thank you. Good job. Okay, and now we get this weird thing, post tags. Thingy, post tags. Let's rewrite our function name to snippet. Okay, so now we have snippet. We have the ability to filter according to the built-in tags. And now we have this new language taxonomy. Cool. Let's do one more, and let's also make this a little more dynamic like we did with add post tag. So add taxonomy is going to accept the name, and it's also going to accept a list of arguments. And then shortly I'm going to show you how to merge your arguments so that whatever you pass in overrides what's built in. So name, function, use name. We're going to take advantage of closures in this case. And also I want to make sure that the arguments, if the user calls this function and passes an array, it's optional. And we have to make sure it is an array. So I'll set the default to an array. That way, it's optional if they do it. All right, now we're going to register taxonomy. The name of the taxonomy is name. And if you want to be super secure and make sure that they don't pass in anything with spaces in it or anything with uppercase letters, you could always do something like name equals string, do a PHP function. That'll take a word and make it all lowercase, or you could even do string replace, look for a space, and we're going to replace any occurrence of a space with an underline. And third parameters, what are we working with? And that would essentially turn I there to I there. So it's up to you. All right, so now we're going to register a post type. We need to make sure that when we call our function, we can specify the name of the post type that it corresponds to. So let's add that as well. Post type. And then when we call this function, we'll say language, and this is references snippet. And this is where taking a more object-oriented approach is really better, I think, because you don't have to duplicate yourself as much, and you can get quite a bit more done. Okay, and language label, say name, words, refresh, undefined variable post type. And this is happening because we're trying to reference post type right here, but we didn't pass it to the callback, so you'll want to make sure you do that as well. Okay, that looks good. So now if we wanted to try another one, language, I don't know if difficulty really makes sense for filtering. Maybe. Maybe you want to look at easy snippets. That's a little odd. But now we can just call that function call, and it works just fine. And I do want you to note, same thing when you're passing your configuration options. We're on the difficulty taxonomy, but it still says add new tag. And same thing, you would want to pass a labels array, and there's a huge number of configuration options. We go here, let's see, just the post type. I've already gotten rid of it. Anyways, you can go to and you can refer to the codex for all of the different labels that you can provide. All right. So let's say that we want to have the option to override the configuration settings. So when I reference add taxonomy language, I can pass this optional array, and then I can say labels, pass an array, and we can say for the add new item, we can say add new. And what you'll find is this does not work. Right here, language add new tag. It's not taking effect at all. And that's because, well, let's go through the life cycle. We go to add taxonomy, we pass in args. So now this args array is equal to this what we have right here. Then we pass the args array into the add action, and we register the taxonomy, but we never do anything with it. So what I want to do is say whatever I passed into this args array should override everything that is stored right here. I'm pretty sure WordPress has a built-in feature, but we'll use the PHP method. And let's see what we can do. Right here. Let's take out this big array. And now within here, so we have a little more real estate, we're going to use a PHP function called array merge. This is one way we could do it. An array merge will accept two parameters. The first one is going to be your first array. So we'll paste that in like so. And the second parameter is going to be a second array that you want to merge in. So we'll pass in args. And now the way it works is the second parameter, anything that's specified here is automatically going to override the first array. That's how array merge works. So we run that. It works fine, but then we don't do anything with it. We merge it and then it just vanishes. So I want to make sure that I save it back to this args array. So now we're just overriding it. And now when we register taxonomy, we pass in that new updated array. Let's try it. Here we go, add new language. We now have the option to, when we call our function, we can either do it simply like this, add taxonomy, difficulty snippet, done, or you can pass an optional configuration array. Cool. Let's go back. And we're going to add a new snippet. And it's important to know that when you add a taxonomy, these sections right here will automatically be added to the add post section. So when we call that register taxonomy, we now have language difficulty, post tags. That's a good number of ways to filter our content. So at this point, we want to think about a content that is unique to this post. Taxonomies are for grouping. Similarities. Some posts are CSS3, some are JavaScript. That's their similarities. But some things are specific to the post itself. Maybe, let's say we're doing border radius, and we want to have the ability to, I don't know, reference a URL. Maybe there's a GitHub link. Surely there's not a GitHub link for border radius, but you get the idea. Specific information for your post. So we're going to use custom meta boxes. So let's do that. Let's go back to my custom post. And we're going to use this function add meta box. And you can see it accepts like 5 or 6 parameters. So always use snippets if you're not already, because most of us can't remember it. So the first one is going to be an ID. And you want to always use unique IDs to make sure you're not clashing with anything else. So we'll use my initials. This is fairly common. And we'll say snippet info will be the ID for it. And the title is going to be the heading that displays on the post page. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. You see this excerpt right here? That's going to be the format for our custom meta box. The title will be like excerpt is. So in our case, we want title, snippet, info. Now callback is going to be a function that handles the process of displaying the form. So if we want an associated URL for the snippet so that you can link back, you would place it within this callback. Now, if we wanted to do the anonymous function route, we could do this. But personally, I think it gets a little muddy when placed inside here, so I do like to use a named function in this case. And it's always important to use some kind of naming convention. It doesn't matter what it is, but just make sure that you follow a naming convention when naming your functions and your IDs. It makes it a lot easier when you come back down the line. So we'll say snippet, info, CD. All right, next post type. Once again, what post type does this connect to? It connects to snippet. And context. And this is going to be where it displays. Do we want it on the side or in the main section? Let's keep it to... And then priority is going to be vertically. How important is this? Should it display as up as it can possibly, or is it not important, in which case it can go toward the bottom? Set that to high. And then finally, you have a final parameter. And this will be optional, and it would be a list of arguments that you wanted to pass. So if I have an array for args, that would then be passed to this callback function as parameters, if you, for some reason, need it. So let's leave it like that, because that's optional. And once again, add meta box. We just have it right in the middle of our PHP file. We need to tell WordPress. I know you guys are going crazy over that. One more. And one more. Anyways, we need to tell WordPress when to execute this, because otherwise it's not going to work, or it's going to occur for every single page request, even when somebody's viewing WordPress post. So if you're using WordPress 2.9 or lower, which why would you ever, you could use the admin and init action. And this will fire when you would expect it. But 3.0 and higher, you can do something a little bit better. Place it within the add, appropriately named add meta boxes action. So now when the do action for add meta boxes occurs, we're going to add meta box with the name of snippet info. Anyhow.
You have main where it should be normal, I believe.
Is that it?
Yeah, in that snippet you had, it didn't have main.
Yes! Very good. Okay. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. It's really hard to do these tutorials live because these little things happen. Okay, good job. I'll give you something after. No idea what.
Could you repeat what he said?
I'll give you a t-shirt. Okay, what the mistake was, is here I accidentally did main, and this was the context. And it really should be normal. That was my mistake. And that specifies that it should just be right here on the side, rather than the side. It'll go over here.
Instead of t-shirt, can you explain where to find that information?
Information on...
You had a snippet, but if I don't have snippets, so where do I get the...
You would go to the WordPress codex. So in our case, we're calling, anytime you're using a WordPress function and you want to learn more about it, just copy it, and then we're going to say WordPress codex, paste that in. Anyhow, take the top link, and this will show you all the configuration options that are available.
Are there any good snippet libraries for that Sublime, or does it work with TextMate bundle?
The cool thing about Sublime Text is raise your hand if you're a TextMate user. Oh, not many. If you are a TextMate user, you can use all of your bundles in Sublime Text. By the way, if you are a TextMate user, supposedly the 2.0 beta is going to be available around Christmas. So that's something people are pretty excited about. It seems you guys are not. Okay, so we have our snippet info, and it's giving us a warning. Call user expects one parameter. And that's because we created this named function, and that will handle the displaying the labels. But we haven't created it yet, so let's do that now. We'll place it right here. And if I were to echo hello, sure enough, we have that. So in our case, we want to have a section so the user can insert an associated URL for the snippet. So let's add a label, and let's say associated URL. And then we're going to have an input after type equals text. Now, technically, you can just remove this, and the default will be type equals text, but you probably don't want to do that because lots of times in a style sheet, it'll look for something like this. In a style sheet, it'll say input type equals text, then do this. And if you don't set that attribute, this will never fire. And I believe WordPress will do that. So yeah, just go ahead and set the type equals text. So now if I reload the page, we do have that, but that input is too short. I really want it to take up more space like the excerpt does below. We can use a WordPress class called YFAT to do that. Or I believe WordPress will even use tables for something like this.
What was the name of that?
YFAT. Very common. You can use it on all of your inputs. So now we need to give an ID, because ultimately we're going to be posting this information and we want to save it to the database. So we're going to give an ID, and we'll say JW associated URL. And we're going to do the same thing for name. Now name is technically what's going to be used for the $_post super global, but we also want to have a reference for the label. So if I say label for that name, and then we have an ID of it, when I click on the label, as you guys probably know, it'll automatically select, it should automatically select the input. Label for, yeah. All right, so now we do want to always think about security, but first let's just get it working. So we've added a label, we've given it a name. When the post is saved, let's add an action called save post, and this is going to fire whenever this post is saved. But it's not only going to happen when you manually submit that form and save it. There's also, like when you're writing a blog post and WordPress auto-saves it. You got to think about all these different situations. So you might want to save a snippet called autosave, which should be there. There we go. And this just says if WordPress is in the process of performing an autosave, maybe you don't want to go ahead and update the post meta information. You only want to do it when you physically save the draft. So it's up to you. So now, what we really want to do is let me print our post. we're going to print R the post super global when the post is saved, and that'll let us see what's available to work with. So let's do opacity. This is our super simple, and we'll say associated URL. I don't have one, so I'll set it to nettouch. And if I save it, you'll see that we're printing R everything that's contained within the post super global. And in our case, we don't really need this. What we want is at the bottom, and you can see post content. That is the editor.
You don't have value, but the...
Oh yeah, it is stored there. Okay. So, let's see, we had an input, class, ID. Should be fine. And then we post it, and it should be stored within there. Ultimately, we're going to want to set a default value because we're going to be retrieving that value from the database and we'll automatically display it there. But, until then, let's find out what's going on with this. All right, so now we know it's stored within there. Our job is to get that specific value, and we want to attach it to the meta information for the post. So that's the next step, is we can use a function called update post meta. And what we want to paste in here is JW associated URL. So now I'm saying when a post is saved by us, we're going to check to see if that value is set. Is there anything there to work with? And if it is, we want to add meta information or attach meta information specifically to this post. And update post meta is a cool option to use because if it doesn't exist, it'll just add it for you. So you can generally use update post meta fine. And the first parameter is going to be the ID of the post. It needs to know what is the ID that I am attaching information to. So we can grab the post by doing global post. Bring that in, and now we have access to the ID of this specific post. Next parameter is the name. In this case, it's JW associated URL. I'm making that the same name as our ID. You don't have to, but have a naming convention. So that's what it's going to be referenced as when we're developing a theme. And the third parameter is going to be what is the value of this? And it's going to be whatever we typed into that text box, which was nettouch. And that's now going to be saved. So now, let's come back and let's see if we can look at this. Let's bring in, when we're displaying the form, let's bring in post again. And if we want to retrieve this value right there, we can use either get post custom or get post meta. Now the way get post custom works is you pass in the ID of the post, and it's going to return an array containing all of the fields that are attached to it. And then you can just reference the one you want. If you do need something specific, you can instead use get post meta. And then we say post ID, and what meta information do we want? We want this one right here. So get the post meta information for the post, find the one named JW associated URL, and return it. Now by default, it's going to return it as an array. And the third parameter specifies that. False, return as an array. If we just want that string, I just want that word nettouch, I'm going to set this third parameter to true, and that means return it as a string. So then I can set that to URL, and URL should now contain the word nettouch, or net.touch plus. And then if we want to set that as the default value, set the value and echo out the URL so we can see it. All right, let's see if that works. Scroll down, and let's add nettouch. And save it. And ta-da! Finally, so that works. And then you could just add all of the specific information. If you need a text area, if you need a select box, you would place it all in here, and then you could do like a for each statement to filter through and update the content. All right, good. So this is looking actually fairly good. We're having a snippet custom post type. We have the ability to specify a tag, language, difficulty, a URL associated with it. This completes part one. So the second part is how would we get this information and get it on the page. If you're a theme developer, that's important. So let's create a couple of them. And this first one will be, say, border radius. And this is my snippet for how you would display border radius. So let's go to prefixer.com. This is a website I built that you just paste in your style sheet. Whoa. You paste in your style sheet and it'll shoot out the same style sheet but with all of the vendor prefixes that you require. So for example, if I did border radius 10 pixels, and normally you would paste in the entire style sheet and it'll just filter through and update everything. So like give you a quick example. Let's say border radius 10 pixels, box shadow. Here we're just doing the official versions. This is completely not important. Background, let's say we're going to give it linear gradient. This is CSS3 gradients from red to green. You can just prefix size that. And it'll just go through and make it work for all the different browsers. So that may be helpful to you. All right, so let's make a snippet for border radius. Okay, we'll paste that in. And post tag, how are we going to tag this? We'll tag it as CSS3. Language, CSS, difficulty, easy. And excerpt, bounded corners, yay. All right, looks good to me. So now we have our first snippet. We've attached a lot of content. Let's do one more just so we have something to work with and we can get it on the page. Let's do something, maybe an anonymous function. And this is a way in your JavaScript, you all know this. This is a way in your JavaScript to keep from using all of those nasty global variables. So you just encapsulate it in a self-executing function. All right, so we'll say function, and the language is JavaScript. And difficulty, let's do something different just so we have something different to work with. URL, once again, nettuts, excerpt. All right, so now if we go to our snippets, our new custom post type, these are actually some that I created before. Let's get rid of those. We now have a new custom post type with these. So now watch what happens if I view an anonymous function. Zoom out, and you can see it's just using the built-in single.php file to display this. And of course, we want to be able to get all of that extra information out. So we're going to edit single.php. Because if we did, then that would update for even regular posts. So what we want to do is have something a little more custom. So we can do that by create a new file, and we call it single dash, and then the name of your custom post type.php. So ours is called snippet. Hi. Now, if I refresh the page, you can see it is bringing in that specific file. Good. So now we can play around with this, and we're not interfering with regular posts. So the first step is go to single, and let's just copy all of that out and paste it in. Now, don't let any of this worry you if you're not familiar with it. It's just a built-in theme. So this is all necessary for the theme, but I want to make it as easy as possible to understand. So I'm going to delete as much as we possibly can. OK. Now, for the loop, you can see, if you're not familiar with template part, maybe you're familiar with manually filtering through or writing your the title and content in here. Kind of a newer ways to get a specific template part. So here, this is how they're building up the string of the file name. So it's saying content single. That's going to look for a file called content-single.php. And if you look right here, you can see it is referenced right here. But we want our own. So why don't we do something like snippet symbol, like that. All right, and I will add that file. Load. Now we have that. So now within here, we have access to all the things that you're used to. For example, H1, title. There we go. And you can see it right there. All right, so let's just start building this up as quickly as we can. I'm going to take a single snippet, and this is the original. Paste it in, same way we did before. That's not what we want. Content single, get that. Okay. And then once again, all of this scary information, let's just remove it for now. We don't really need it. Same thing, article, just be terrible people and get rid of the entire footer and the content. Okay, there we go. So the content will essentially be the snippet itself. So it makes sense to place that within free tags. Content. Now we are displaying that. We're not going to go through the process of syntax highlighting. I don't think I have time for that. You might take a look. Google has one where you would just add a class of prettyprint, and it's JavaScript based and it works really easy. You can have that set up and running in like 2 minutes. So pretty neat. Next we have the title. Let's come back. All right, so now let's filter through here and see what else we want to get on the page. First thing is, I'd like to get the language all the way at the top. And we have our language taxonomy. So that's what we want to get. Let's place it within the H1 just to make things easier. So we want a terms list. Terms list is get the term list is a really helpful function. You pass in the post ID, so we want to make sure we should be able to get the ID, right? Second parameter is going to be what is the taxonomy name that we want. In this case, we do want language. And then the third and fourth parameters are going to be how you separate it. What comes before the term and what comes after it. So in this case, we're doing a comma-separated list, essentially. If we had CSS and JavaScript saved to language, it would then echo out links to those separated by a comma. Reload. Right here. Expected on 16. All right, and now you can see it doesn't look good, but we have anonymous function, and JavaScript is now a link, and this is how we can filter and only view snippets that are JavaScript. Why don't we style this really quickly? Why don't we div with a class of language, and then go into style and style this up as quickly as we can. All right, first thing is I'm going to set a border radius all around it to 10 pixels. We're going to use background of red because it's the greatest color ever. And I don't know, font size 10 pixels. Let's do this little bit by little bit. There we go. And language. Let's get the anchor tag itself. Make it color white, adding. It gets loud in here, doesn't it? Padding of 6 pixels. If you can't hear me, anyone just speak up and it'll be louder. All right, so this is looking decidedly bad, but it's fine for what we need. Okay, yeah, it didn't look great, but now you have your name of the function and then the language next to it. You can click on the language, and that'll allow you to filter only posts that are that taxonomy. All right, let's try to be a little quicker, see what else I can get. The tags, if we want to display the tags below, we can just use the simple function tags. Like so. The tags will filter through and give you a list of all the tags that are applied. You can customize what it displays, if anything. Just leave it at that for now. Also, difficulty. This is, you can do the same thing here. We'll get the terms list. And we'll just, once again, we're not going to win any awards for styling. But it'll be fine. This time I want to display all of the difficulty terms that are attached. And why don't we do this? If you've never typed in front of 80 people, it's not quite as easy as you think. All right, so we got the intermediate. What else? We want to have the excerpt. So this is what we just did to describe the content. Excerpt. Now, if memory serves me right, the default theme they use something custom here. Yeah, continue reading. This is a WordPress is overriding the display for the excerpt. So if you wanted to change that, it's really not necessary, but we could look for. Let's do this. Continue reading. Yeah, and you can see here. We don't even need to learn this. Come back, just remove that. Okay, so that's fine. We have an anonymous function. We have the ability to view the language. We have the snippet itself. We have the excerpt. We have the difficulty that's applied to it. And then you have the tags. And then you would want to use your CSS skills and set that up however you want. So now, if I go back to home, you can see it's still displaying my blog post. And that's the default. So if you wanted to, if your entire website was going to be for displaying snippets, you could override it. And then I'll show you another way. If we went to index.php, and right now it doesn't know what kind of post type to query, so it's just using the default post type. So if I wanted to do query posts, you could also use WP query if you prefer more of that approach. And I can say post type equals snippet. Now we're saying only display the posts. Only display the posts that are of the snippet post type. And now you can see we get those two as we would expect. But what if you have a blog and you want to have a special page only for snippets? And that's fairly common too. In that case, we're not going to go over it, but what you would want to do is create a custom page template. And if you need help with that, you can Google it or you can talk to me after. And then within your page template, you could place your custom query. And that way, you keep your blog, and then you have a specialized page only for snippets. If you guys are familiar with Chris Coyier, I think he does the same thing. Let's see. Yeah, he has a section for snippets, and this is a custom post type, I would imagine. And then you can filter it like so. All right, so let's come back. The next step is I want to have the ability on the home page to, within the sidebar, let's go back home. Within the sidebar, be able to display our filtering, much like we saw in that pop filters. So if I go to index.php, it should reference the sidebar. It's using get sidebar, so it's looking for a file called, as we all know, get sidebar. And that should be displaying here. It is displaying.
I don't think that theme has widgets, the sidebars.
No, those
Yeah,
just
it
on the
does.
bottom.
Is there something on the bottom?
I mean, the sidebars are on the bottom of the page.
Is it? Oh, it is. I must saw it.
Yeah, it must be the pre because it's a block, so it's going all the way.
Okay, here. All right. Anyways, it doesn't matter. So we have the archives and the meta information at the bottom. Let's just remove these entirely. So within cider.php, get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. And we don't need an ID in this case. And now at this point, we want to have, we'll say, this will be the section where we can sort by difficulty. You could do this dynamically, or we can just do it like so. Just a moment. And at this step, we want to get all of the terms. So again, always use snippets. It'll save you so much time. And what we're doing right here is we're creating a variable called terms, and we're saying get all of the terms that we've saved. So in our case, for difficulty, I think we have beginner and intermediate, or easy and intermediate. And then that's stored as an array. So we're going to say filter through every term. So for every term as term, let's echo out an anchor tag. And within the ref, we're echoing out another WordPress function, getTermLink, and that accepts two parameters. First is the slug, and essentially that's going to be the value that you applied. For difficulty, easy would be the slug, intermediate would be the slug, and then difficult. Finally, we just echo out the term name, same thing. So let's view this, and now you see right there, we have difficulty, easy, intermediate. You can click on those and view only posts that are of that taxonomy name. Same thing, like so. All right, let's do one more. I don't want to hold you guys up too much tonight. And this one is going to be for, what was the other one? Was it language? We've already done difficulty, so we want to do language. And we're going to do the same thing here. All right, so now we have the option to sort by difficulty and by language, same thing here. And this really becomes powerful when you have hundreds of posts, and you can really easily filter all of your content. And then finally, what else should we do? We need the tags, right? Let's echo out a tag cloud. Right here, tag cloud. This is one way that you can do it. It's a very quick way. By default, a tag cloud will take all of your tags, and the ones that you use more frequently will be larger and smaller. You know what a tag cloud is. Why am I describing this to you? But if we want to be hacks, we can set smallest to 9 and largest to 9. It just makes it into a list of tags. There's more formal ways to do it, but it's okay for now. There we go. And now we have our list of tags right here. All right, so the last thing I want to show you is, even though we can filter by tag, watch what happens when I click on it. Nothing found. And this is something that gets a lot of people. We can filter by our custom taxonomies, but now that we're using a tag, and the same thing is going to happen for category, you're going to get this nothing found. This happens a lot. I see a lot of tweets about it. So it's because if I go into tag.php, again, it's still using just the default post type. We haven't told it that we want to be using a snippet post type. So one thing you can do, and we're going to do it the wrong way first, post type to snippet. If I were to try it again, that does work. But notice that even though I'm on, let's say, CSS3 tags, it's still displaying everything. And that's because we've completely overwritten the query string. Right here, whatever's in here is irrelevant at this point, because now we've come and said, just give me all posts that have a type of snippet. So if you ever want to retain the query string, another option is to, you can bring it in, because it's stored as a global variable. So I can say global query string, and then query posts, just get that on, and then append whatever else you want to add. That's an easy way to.
Content, right? 514.
ID content?
514.
Okay. Relax, guys. All right, now good. So now we are successfully filtering. So this is something you need to think about is, do you want to only display the snippet, or do you want to bring in post too? So you would think you could do something like this, get the post type of snippet and post. But you really can't. So one way would be to do WP query. You could do that method. Another way would be within your functions file to, you could do something like a pre-get post filter. Pre-get post. And what this does is we could run a filter and say, if we are on the tag page, it is tagged, and we aren't suppressing any filters, in that case, set the query, and we're going to look for all posts and all snippets. So yeah, for anything, there's a few different ways that you can solve it. And then I could remove this entirely because we are filtering the content. That's one way that you can do it. On line 12, make sure we pass that in. There we go. And now we're getting the same thing. Okay, that's as much as I wanted to cover today, but if you think about it, our styling is horrible, but you can fix that. But if you think about it, we've actually done quite a bit here. We've managed to make a way where we can display snippets, we can filter it by difficulty, we can filter it by language, we can filter it by tags. That's really powerful, and it's something that would have taken quite a bit of work pre-WordPress 3.0 days. So yeah, definitely use custom post types. That's it. Questions, criticisms, hate?
I think the broader advantage kind of went over my head, but what's better about doing this than using categories and subcategories and tags?
Well, because you may need more filtering. So if I have snippets, I can filter according to one category. I can filter according to, you know.
You have to change the questions asked too.
Yeah, the language. So this makes it a lot easier when you just need a wide different, I'm trying to word this correctly, when you need lots of different ways to filter your content. It just depends. Sometimes you need more than tags or categories.
You can also add it next to your existing blog post.
Yeah.
So it won't interfere with your post categories and tags.
Yeah. It's just a way to group similar content together. That's all a custom post type is. That's all a taxonomy is. It's just filtering. It's grouping. And we did this in an hour. If I wasn't speaking, you could do this much quicker. If you had a class, you could do this in a few minutes. So it's really smart just to put in a little bit of effort because it goes a long way, especially if you build a class.
What would be some of the best practices? Like, are there like your kind of do's and don'ts? Like, would be kind of, even if it's possible, not advisable to do a certain kind of type?
long blog posts are written about that one. You know, they're as simple as things like they need to be all lowercase. And that's why if you're building your functions, you can always do things where you can think ahead and figure out what mistakes whoever is going to be using your file or your class are going to make. I have a link to a best practices article. Find me after the presentation, because I do have that for you. But yeah, long article.
That URL you showed us before briefly, the CSS one. What was
Prefixer?
that? Yeah.
Did you like that?
Yes.
Prefixer was built out of necessity. Who doesn't understand what CSS prefixes are? Anyone? It's okay.
Not really. Not really.
Okay.
I use prefixes.
When CSS3 started taking shape, the browser vendors wanted to experiment with it. But they don't want to officially implement, for example, border radius. They do now, but years and years ago, because they were still experimenting with it. So as soon as they made it official, then they're kind of cemented in. So what they did was they made these prefixes. So Moz border radius for Firefox, WebKit border radius.
Do you still have to use those?
It depends on the property. For border radius, maybe not. Maybe not. For things like box shadow, yeah. It just depends on how far back you want to support. For things like linear gradients, there are so many different. Let's see if I can do it. Container, and we'll do background linear gradient. There's so many different syntaxes for a linear gradient. The modern browsers will support, I'm not sure about linear gradient to be honest, but the more modern browsers will support the official syntax at this point. But you have like older versions of WebKit right up here. I'm pointing like you know what I'm pointing to. Older versions of WebKit use this totally different syntax, and they've since upgraded to this. But if you do want to support people who are browsing your websites in those older browsers, you can still add that in. And nobody wants to do this, so Prefixer will just go through, find all of your CSS properties. You can specify if you don't want to include any, and it'll just automatically update your style sheet so you don't have to. Another thing you could do is the API, which is what I would prefer. Container. So here, from your favorite editor, you could reference the API, hit a shortcut, and that will just automatically update it. So when you're done, you select your whole style sheet, press your shortcut, it would update the whole style sheet if you would want. What else?
What if language in your example was created as a custom post type before and you want to link the two? So suppose each custom post, suppose language custom post type and each individual item had parameters associated with it. How would you be able to link your snippets to?
It's hard to explain, but within your query, you would reference both custom post types, and then you can use the query string. So let's come back. So if I went into here, so if I want to say easy, and then I could reference something else, and language equals, I don't know, JavaScript, and then you can just kind of build the query. It's hard to explain in words.
That custom content plugin yesterday.
There are plugins, yeah, there are plugins you can use, but this is a WordPress meetup. We're learning how we can do it.
But for people like if you have trouble with it.
Yeah, if you're a blogger and you want to have this functionality, just look in the plugins. There's a handful, definitely.
I've run into like a kind of a wall where, you know how you can make an archive of your terms. I wanted to have an archive of all my taxonomies. I don't really see a way to do it.
You can, so you want to just have an archive page that only displays a list of your taxonomies?
Yeah, dynamically.
You can do that. There's a WordPress function. Is it get terms? Let's get terms. I'm not going to remember what it is, but there is a WordPress function specifically for that, and it'll just return all of the terms that you have set up. And then you can filter through every term and just echo out whatever you want. Go ahead, sir.
Any particular difference between doing it in functions PHP versus writing a plugin?
It just depends on preference. If you, somebody wrote about this. What is that famous?
Justin Tadlock.
No, not Justin Tadlock. It's, what is the WordPress blog everyone knows? It's fairly new. Get Candy. The creator of Get Candy wrote something about using plugins for this, and I can't remember what he called it. we gave it a specific name. But it really just comes down to preference. Is this something that you would imagine people would install, or is it specific to your theme? Another thing that some people would argue is if you use a functions file, it really doesn't belong in functions because it is an extension and it cleans up all of your code so you're not muddying it up. It's all preference, you know? Lots of ways to do stuff. What else?
Just a quick question about the Sublime text that you're using. So all those snippets, did you put them in there? Are they?
I put them in there. Or if you use like text-to-make bundles, you can import all of those into Sublime. But in this case, I just put them in there. So I could go to snippet, new snippet. I can say, hey, Jeff, and we'll make a tab stop there. To today. And we can set the scope so I only want this to display on. Maybe only in PHP files. And the tab trigger is going to be hello. So we save that to here. At least this is how I would do it, Sublime dash. TextMate makes it much easier, but Sublime is still in beta mode. So then you could go within any PHP file and say hello. And it comes out, hello John, how are you tomorrow, if that makes sense. That's it. Anything else?
I want to help answer one of the questions about post types. Could you bring up a website, wpnyc.org. So someone asked about why would you use post types, why would you use custom taxonomy. This is something we use on the site. It's in the loads this time. So if you click on the very top, it says WPNYC TV. Sorry, one of the
right there?
Yeah. So all the videos, this is going to be videotaped, all the videos are custom post type on this website. I did not want the videos to get sort of muddled in with the posts. So I want to keep them separate, right? So I can post them. Posts could be announcements and news, videos are videos. All the presenters, and Jeff will be one up here, is a custom taxonomy. And there's a tag cloud of all the presenters related to the post types. Totally separate, right? I don't want to muddle it with tags and categories. And you can easily see that. And then I even link to their own website. If you click on Jacoby, you'll see it's a link to the website. So hope that explains.
And that's a custom field, or are you using like a...
That actually is the taxonomy, the description.
A description taxonomy?
The description of the taxonomy is wrapped in a link.
Okay.
So as you can see, I tagged it. I keep it as a tag, right? It's a buddy-press tag, but the presenters are a separate taxonomy, not a category, not a tag. Taxonomy called presenters. So I think this is a good example. One of the reasons they did this way is to use as an example.
The way I finally understood taxonomies is that word filtering. If you got to filter your content somehow, if you wanted to filter your content, how would you do it? And then you just create the taxonomies to allow yourself to do it.
You have a question? How much work went into creating the URLs without pre-reference?
You can do that automatically.
Yeah, they're done. They're built automatically.
Permalinks. You can set custom permalinks. Go into settings, and then you can choose one of the defaults, or you can just set a custom one, like this category / post name. Yes, WordPress does a lot for you out of the box. You don't have to do it.
No, I didn't ask about that. Like linking from the terms, right, to those custom URLs.
What custom URL are you talking about? You mean the WordPress builds the URL for you? The presenter slash, that's built. WordPress builds that for you. Presenter is the taxonomy, John Jacoby is the...
So it will just know that because of the taxonomy name is presenter, it will use this format.
Yeah. You can override.
And category, and it is, the keyword is a category for the custom taxonomies. The custom keyword category %.
But word presenter? That is the taxonomy. And then
I mean, when you create custom permalinks, in that permalink,
right?
What do you specify?
I think I did. Yeah, the percent sign wraps the values.
But you're saying the value is...
No, it should go back to the permalink.
You use taxonomy as the value.
Right, percentages wrap the structure for you.
WordPress is smart enough to know what the category is, so it will use your taxonomy. Because there's a default rewrite option when you create a taxonomy. Rewrite is set to true, so rewrite will automatically be set to whatever your taxonomy name is. Or you can change that. Same thing with, let's see if I can find it. And I can suppose there are options where you could, right here, you could pass in rewrite. There's so many options. You'll want to investigate those in the codex. Things like rewrite and as archive. Yeah, it's pretty powerful.
This kind of goes back to my example, but Steve, when you created the presenter, and you created them as a custom taxonomy, you said that you used the title of the taxonomy and the description to allow it. If you wanted to, say height, weight, city that they're from, would it make sense to then make that as the presenter as a custom post type as well? And then I guess that's what I was asking, is if you then link the two when you were creating.
You can add meta to a post type. You can add to a taxonomy. You can add meta to a taxonomy.
Oh, you can.
I'm not 100% sure how
So which is the best way to do it? That way to create two separate custom post types, in that case TV shows or TV videos, and then presenters, and then when you're creating a video.
So you're saying, like, how could I say find this TV show where the presenter?
I'm working more on the dashboard and everything. If you're creating a new video to upload, and you have a presenter that's presented a couple times before, and you want to select them, but they also have maybe a presenter page, a presenter profile that has a bunch of parameters.
Oh.
Like essentially, you're looking at two separate custom post types.
You can share taxonomies.
Yeah.
I only partially know what you're referring to. I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to remember, WordPress, it's not a full CMS. You can make it really close to CMS using this stuff, but sometimes if you really need a lot of flexibility, maybe you're not using the right tool for the job. It really just depends.
You also need to really think it through, how you want to organize your data.
Yeah.
And then take a step back.
And you're not referring to this where you can view all of the terms attached to your taxonomy?
No, I'm actually thinking like you have that movie, the classic movie and acting. So you have Tom Selleck, he's been in a bunch of movies, and he's got a whole profile. So on the site, you might want to have actor profile where you view Tom Selleck in a movie sequence, and then you also have a bunch of movies. So we might have Tom Selleck and Meg Ryan, or
actually Justin Padlock wrote a really great post about a movie database.
Yeah, I think that's.
I would check that out because he does a really good job of explaining post types and taxonomy.
So he would have an actor taxonomy, and that would contain. Okay, yeah. So you can. I see what you're saying. Yeah, this is all possible. Not anything I can describe verbally, but yeah, you can add custom information within here so that you could have links or any additional information that you want to attach to it. And then you could have a custom template that would display that information so you can read about Tom Selleck.
So would be the best way to do it would be to make Tom Selleck an actor taxonomy.
How I would do it.
As opposed to an actor custom post.
If taxonomy is enough for you, great. If not, there's a plugin called Post to Post that will actually, it's kind of a very early stage idea of like actually linking a post directly to another post and then describing that relationship.
Cool, thanks.
Is that it?